Chapter 1 opens with Kaiji playing a card game. A poster in the background reads, "The future is in our hands," foreshadowing a recurring theme throughout the manga. Kaiji, looking defeated, reveals his cards as everyone around him smiles, knowing they're about to hit big. He has lost the gamble again. Kaiji, unlucky, screams, "Why?" while two men high-five and Kaiji throws his card into the air. Recognizing himself as a loser, Kaiji admits he doesn't even have a job, yet continues to gamble. Hysterically laughing and then crying, he cycles through emotions, asking himself why he is crying and how it all came to this, failing to realize it is his own doing. After all, who gambles without a job? On his way home, Kaiji contemplates how he wants to escape his miserable life, wondering if getting a job might be the solution. February 1996 was the most miserable time Kaiji had ever experienced. After moving to Tokyo 3 years earlier, he had been laid off at the start of the year. He spent his days drinking and gambling. When overwhelmed by the boredom of his aimless existence, he would go out, find luxury cars parked on the roadside, and vandalize them. Not only was he completely unproductive, he also actively tried to bring others down. That day, unable to find his favorite prey, a Benz, Kaiji nearly gives up until spotting a luxury car in the distance. Pulling out a knife, he vandalizes the vehicle, looking around to make sure no one sees him. Feeling good about his petty crime, he justifies his actions internally. An honest man wouldn't be driving such a car. It must belong to a bully or thug. This is just his well-deserved punishment, Kaiji thinks. What goes around comes around. Riding his bike, Kaiji passes a man seemingly looking for an apartment building. His mood, lightened by the vandalism, doesn't change the fact that none of his real problems have been solved. At home, lying on the floor, Kaiji stews over how everything revolves around money. In a fit of anger and despair, he pounds the floor, tears in his eyes. "What am I doing crying? Oh my God, am I a retard, damn it," he mutters. A knock at the door interrupts him. Kaiji swings it open and yells, "What the fuck do you want?" It is Indu, the man he passed earlier. Kaiji, immediately backpedaling, says, "How can I help you?" Indu, ignoring the question, asks, "Are you Kaiji?" Kaiji nervously confirms, "That's me." "And you are?" Indu answers with another question. "Are you familiar with a man called Furuhata Takashi?" Kaiji says, "Yeah." He knows Furuhata, a co-worker from a year ago, but admits he hasn't seen him in ages and that they are practically cut off from one another. Kaiji asks if something happened to him. Indu responds by asking, "Can we continue this conversation inside?" Kaiji, taken aback by the question, thinks about the car emblems he ripped off, which are hanging openly in his room, and worries. What if Indu is one of the owners of the Mercedes-Benz S? Trying to deflect, Kaiji suggests they go someplace outside or out to eat, taking the attention off his room. Indu agrees and says he'll go get the car. As soon as Indu leaves, Kaiji races to the emblems, grabs them, and stuffs them into a bag to hide them. He thinks, "That was close. Even though I have no idea who he is, I'm better off hiding these guys first." Meanwhile, outside, Indu looks frustrated as he inspects his car, the same car Kaiji vandalized earlier. After inspecting his car, Indu calls for another ride and walks back toward Kaiji's apartment. "We're out of luck, Kaiji," Indu says. He tells Kaiji he ran a flat, which is not entirely true. Indu is withholding information. He tells Kaiji someone is on the way to pick them up. Kaiji, not liking the situation, forces a smile while cursing under his breath. Indu is persistent, asking once again if they can go inside. Kaiji tries to stall, saying, "Is it really that cold?" But Indu doesn't want to stand outside. He says it isn't normal for two grown men to be hanging around a house in broad daylight, and he doesn't want to draw attention to himself. Reluctantly, Kaiji invites Indu inside and serves him tea. Kaiji tries to make small talk, mentioning the vandalized car, saying, "What kind of sick pleasure do these punks get out of vandalizing a car?" Indu stops and puts his cup of tea down, his eyes glaring at Kaiji. "You did it, didn't you?" Kaiji spits out his tea, coughing. He says, "What are you talking about?" Kaiji demands Indu stop joking with him. Indu responds, "I only told you my car had a flat tire." Indu stands up, looking down at Kaiji. Kaiji, afraid of what Indu might do, screams, "Wait, wait." backing right into the shelves that house the emblems. The emblems fall to the floor. Kaiji scrambles to pick them up, but it's too late. Kaiji, embarrassed, says it's exactly what it looks like. He's been caught red-handed. Still lying and not taking accountability, Kaiji tells Indu, "I admit I've messed around before with some cars in the neighborhood, but only Mercedes-Benzes." He claims he keeps his hands off of other cars and begs Indu to believe him. Indu doesn't. He asks Kaiji, "How did you know my car wasn't a Benz?" Indu is an interesting character. He listens carefully to every word Kaiji says, breaking it down while staying silent. Meanwhile, Kaiji didn't even get this guy's name, and yet he's sitting in his house having tea with him. Kaiji, defeated, looks at Indu and realizes he can't get out of this one. The car arrives outside. Kaiji thinks to himself that he's going to be killed for sure. Indu, silent as always, waits for Kaiji to speak first. Kaiji immediately starts coping pleas. "How much would you like me to pay you? I'm not exactly rich, you know." Indu tells Kaiji he would normally make him pay, but it would take too much time. He could loan the money faster from a metal shop. But paying Indu back is the least of Kaiji's worries. Kaiji, confused, asks, "What?" Wondering what Indu means. "The least of my worries?" Kaiji says. Indu laughs to himself while Kaiji repeats the phrase. Indu tells Kaiji his problem. It's Furuhata, the man he mentioned earlier. Kaiji draws a blank, wondering what it could mean. "He ran away?" Kaiji yells. Indu replies, "Yep. The only thing Furuhata left behind was a credit receipt for $10,000 from loan sharks. One of them is." Indu places a piece of paper on the table. Kaiji sees his own name signed as Furuhata's guarantor. Kaiji remembers when Furuhata begged him to help, saying he was desperate for money and wouldn't make any trouble. Kaiji, upset, curses, "That bastard." Indu, reveling in Kaiji's misery, snatches the paper away as if he didn't want Kaiji to read further. "Do you remember now, Kaiji?" This is the problem Indu was talking about. He tells Kaiji that since Furuhata is missing, the debt falls to Kaiji. Kaiji argues he can barely afford his own expenses. How can he take on someone else's debt? Indu, the great salesman he is, says Kaiji can pay little by little every month. Even if he wanted to, Kaiji is jobless. How could he pay $300K? Indu laughs. "You must be joking again. There's a thing called interest." Meaning Kaiji isn't just paying $300K, it's been compounding since Furuhata ran. Indu pulls out another sheet of paper, showing all the numbers. He explains the interest has been compounding at 20% per month. Furuhata ran away 14 months ago. Now the debt has ballooned to $3.8 million. I'm sure Kaiji's heart sank to the pit of his stomach. Three million, Kaiji stutters. Indu lets Kaiji know there's no mistake. The proof is in his hands. Kaiji asks why they would let matters get out of hand like this. Indu tells Kaiji how naive he's being. With a sinister laugh, Indu reveals that Kaiji has been scammed. The loan shark and Furuhata are accomplices. It's a classic trick that ordinary people fall for. The person thinks they're only owing $300K, so they sign the contract. But they're not agreeing to $300K. They're agreeing to the clauses in the contract, which they overlook. So the loan shark lets the bill sit for a year while it's accumulating interest. Meanwhile, the person forgets about the debt. It's harsh, but at this time, you have no choice but to pay the debt in full. Reading this back, it's starting to look like Indu is that loan shark who helped Furuhata. He's obviously up to no good. Indu, pretending to care about Kaiji, says, "But I'm a nice guy. I'm going to be reasonable with you." He offers to let Kaiji pay back $100K per month. Then, thinking that might be too much, lowers it to $60K. No lower than $60K. Indu calculates how long it'll take Kaiji to pay off the debt. He types into a calculator and tells Kaiji, if he works hard and pays the debt off fast, he could be debt-free by the time he's 33, which is obviously a scam. Kaiji sees right through it and gets pissed off. He tells Indu, "Stop fucking around. I'll never pay you." Kaiji insists that such a high interest rate is illegal, and that he's under no obligation to pay. Indu looks at Kaiji with a sinister smile. Illegal is part of the law to Kaiji. Indu gives a lesson on how the world works. Kaiji's high interest rate is doubling every 10 days, accumulating debt. Anyone can collect on it. This is Indu's job. This is true in real life. Debt collectors buy debts all the time. Usually, people don't realize they don't have to pay. They're manipulated, especially the elderly or uninformed. Indu continues, now threatening Kaiji and his family. He brings up Kaiji's sister, working for the government. What if I tell her about your plight? He mentions Kaiji's father, now deceased, and Kaiji's mother, who works a part-time job. I'm sure she'll help pay the rest of your debt. This infuriates Kaiji. You scumbag, he yells. Indu snaps, yelling back, grabbing Kaiji's attention. He insists he doesn't want to do this. He'd hate to see Kaiji's family hate him for dragging them into this. Kaiji, seething with rage, stares at Indu. Indu tells him to calm down. He really doesn't want to do such a thing. Sit down, Indu says, so I can get to the main point. Kaiji questions what Indu is really saying. Indu reiterates, I'm about to tell you my real purpose for contacting you. Kaiji wonders what Indu means, waiting, anticipating the next blow. Indu explains there's a ship setting sail from Harumi Pier, called a spoor. It means hope in French. Right now, the ship is looking for participants to go aboard. Indu explains that one night aboard this ship, what would take you 10 years to pay back, you can make in one night. He says aboard the ship, desperate young men like Kaiji will be there to gamble. It's a gambling ship. If you lose, the debt you incurred will be compounded. You will remain on the ship and be brought to an unknown destination, depending on the severity of the debt. Some people will not be able to return to Japan for 1 to 2 years. But if you can win, the debt will be completely wiped out. And there's a possibility you can win 1 to 2 million. Indu reiterates, get on that ship. Then we get an inner monologue by Indu, learning Indu's true intentions. He says this is a fitting place for losers like you, the last match trash who are on the verge of death. For one night, losers like you try to grasp at the slightest glimmer of hope. On the carnage ship that pulls you to the depths of hell. She is called a spoor, the ship of hope. That concludes chapter 1. I knew Indu was up to no good. He's obviously a Yakuza posing as businessman, pretending to help Kaiji to get on the gambling ship. Kaiji is a sad, desperate character, representing normal people that spend their time wasting their lives gambling and drinking, thinking life is a big party, but wake up realizing they have no money. And they usually get taken advantage of by people that do, like get-rich-quick schemes and crypto scams. I'm interested to see what Kaiji does next in this manga about gambling, life, and capitalism.